We're live. Jimmy D and the Wolf podcast.
Amen.
So you can see my PA is set up behind me. I did my live stream today.
Nice.
Yeah. So my first foray into that. And
how was it, man?
Well, I did three original songs, and it's pretty good. So I had a lot more anxiety about it than I needed to.
Sure. Probably one of those things that, like, once you do it the first time, it gets easier. I remember, it's funny that we're having this conversation because I had a Facebook memory this morning from a year ago today. And 366 days ago, I was in your studio and you made a challenge to me to go live.
Wow.
Every day. And my goal was to go live every day for a year. And I didn't want to, like, bore anybody. So my plan was I'll do a different Facebook live show every day for a year. And I literally went live every day for like 3 months and had a different show. And I just ran out of making a different show. I didn't have anything else I could have done. After those 3 months, I had nothing else. It was like I hit the wall, man. I'd done original shows and little short tributes and little jazz shows and little country shows and little blues shows and just instrumental and just singer-songwriter stuff. And I had tapped it out after those 3 months. And I was going to keep doing it, but then all the licensing stuff changed with Facebook, and we're starting to get pinged. Accounts were being disabled and stuff for playing cover music, and I didn't really understand the changes enough to risk continuing to do it, especially with cover songs. But I have to say, man, that it was a great experience. I got my chops up doing it and made some new fans, I think.
How long did you go each time?
It was always different depending on the show, and, like, really depending on what was going on at home with the family and what my level of interest really, really was with the show. Like, if it was something that I was really, really into, I think some of them were like 35, 40 minutes if I was really feeling them. Most of them were like 3 songs. Most of them were 10 to 15 minutes.
3 songs. Well, that's what I did today. 3 songs.
Yeah. I think that's about right. Keep people's interest and don't go too far. And a lot of them, unfortunately, last year, many of them that I did were artists that had passed because we lost so many artists last year. It just seemed like every time I turned around, we would lose another great artist. And so I did lots of live streams. Like, I did a Little Richard thing and a Johnny Prine thing, and there were a bunch of them, dude.
Well, I was going to, now we're going live on Jimmy D and the Wolf podcast. We're going live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, but we're not playing any live music.
Right.
I was planning on going, now I did Instagram today, the Tim Wolf, and I was planning on doing the same 3 platforms, but on my personal page, or not my personal page, but the Tim Wolf page for, Twitch. I have a Tim Wolf Twitch, I have a Tim Wolf Facebook, and I have Tim Wolf YouTube. But I was thinking about what has happened with Facebook. I mean, did you literally know people that got their account locked up and because they were doing covers?
No, not necessarily that. It's just that they had this
very ominous
disclaimer that Facebook released that was like, hey, we want you to do lives and make money, but hey, we can disable your account if you play any covers. But we're not but we're not going to disable your account. But we can totally disable your account. I mean, I don't remember verbatim how it was worded, but I do remember it giving me a feeling of like the best thing I can do is to just stop.
Well, I did 3 originals today, and that was my plan tomorrow. Tomorrow, maybe around noon, I'm going to go. And that should, I mean, there was some discussion about, like, for example, as an example, if I do a video of a song that I've already uploaded using DistroKid, it's on Spotify and Apple Music and all those places. Like I just uploaded, my most recent single was New York City, and the title of the song. And if I upload a video now of that song, because when I selected the box, the DistroKid, you can say, do you want to, it costs an extra $4.95, I think, a year. And you can have them put it in the YouTube system. And then you will check to see whether or not whatever's uploaded, if there's any infringement on a song that's copyrighted. So if I upload a song, and I've done this before, if I upload a video, I should say, on a song that I previously went through that process with, where I uploaded it to streaming, and I also checked the box for additional $4.95. You don't have to do that, but that I wanted it to be just, I wanted it to be, you know, YouTube to figure out if anybody's using my song and pay me. So they will then send me an email, even before it's even gone live. I usually upload it and it's unlisted while I'm getting all the descriptions and everything right. Even before I make it go live, in this first 2 or 3 minutes that I've got it on the platform ready to go live, unlisted, they'll send me an email saying there's a copyright claim on this song. I mean, I wrote the song, but you know, their system has said, okay, this is in our system, and they don't ever say, oh, we're sorry, it's your song. But there's no strike, it's just a claim. YouTube isn't that harsh. They usually have an agreement that you can go forward with that, and then whoever owns the copyright, like I did Miss You by Rolling Stones, that was fine. I can't monetize it. I did Crazy by not Charles Barkley.
I'd love to hear Charles Barkley do that song.
What's it called?
Gnarls
Barkley, yeah. Gnarls Barkley, yeah. And so on and so on. And all those were fine. The only one that weren't fine, I did an Eagles tune, Desperado. And, you know, Don Felder is no longer with us. Or not Felder. Sorry, not Felder.
Glenn Frey.
Glenn Frey is no longer with us. Don Henley is. But those guys don't want anybody covering their music. And it still wasn't a strike. It was just this video will not be shown in certain territories. You can still see that video, that Desperado video, down in Brazil or some other countries. You can't see it in the U.S. and some other places because they don't have an agreement and they don't allow you to do that. But it still wasn't a strike. A strike is where you get 3 strikes and serious things will happen on YouTube. But there was no strike. There was no negative mark on YouTube. So YouTube's got a really well-developed system on how to handle that. Facebook doesn't seem like they have a well-developed system.
That's what it felt like, man. It felt like they were saying something like what a parent would say when they couldn't figure out what they really need to say, and they need to buy themselves enough time to figure out what they really need to say. That's what it struck me as. Yeah. It was just like the wording was poor and it was vague and
extremely vague. I mean, I think it said if you create an experience using music, we can drop the hammer. I mean, YouTube is much more advanced, and I'm learning more about the YouTube algorithm. I bought this book from this guy Daryl Eves, who has been on YouTube since like day one, and he helps people build YouTube. I mean, he says he's helped 25 channels, and the total views are like 60 billion, and I feel like I understand the YouTube. He had a 5-hour stream talking about his book. He's so passionate about it. And he says, you know, if you're not doing well on YouTube, don't blame YouTube, because people think, well, they're biased against me. It's a conspiracy theory. My stuff isn't being shown. And he said, no, you need to change that mindset. Don't blame YouTube, blame the algorithm, which is owned by YouTube, which is owned by Google. Blame your content. If your content is good enough, it will rise. It's completely, all YouTube cares about is they want people to click, they want them to stay on the platform and continue to stay on the platform. And they don't really care. Well, they've got probably profanity and nudity and things like that. I mean, but if you're not violating those things,
yeah,
you know, it's code of common decency kind of stuff, or creating, you know, conspiracy theories or you know, those kinds of things, violating their, if you're just doing normal content, putting out videos of songs that you wrote or covers, they're fine. And it's highly, highly evolved and highly developed. I mean, I'm getting more and more excited about the YouTube platform. The opportunity there, I've had this book, I'm reading this book, and he said the opportunity is so huge. And Facebook, on the other hand, you know, YouTube, you can have viral, you can have organic reach. You know, you can have people find your content if it's good enough. Facebook, not so much. Facebook wants you to advertise now.
Right.
The age of when you could get viral organic reach on Facebook died a couple of years ago. In fact, I remember seeing emails saying, you know, organic reach is no longer the thing, really. They want you to pay to get the reach on your product.
It seems like they tried to kind of get in people's heads and figure out what they're going to want to see and provide them with that, and not taking into context the fact that people change their mind all the time and people want to discover new stuff. People don't want to see more of the same, which is what Facebook is. Now it's like you get on it and it seems like it knows how you're wired because of different things that you've looked at. It's just more and more and more and more of the same.
Yeah, all Facebook is an advertising vehicle. That's they just want to get ads for advertising. Now YouTube also. I mean, YouTube has there's three prongs to the YouTube environment, or the YouTube ecosystem. And this is from Daryl's book, ripping off his book. You got the creator, you got the viewer, and you got the advertiser. And all three are crucial. But number one in priority, he said, and don't mistake it, is the advertiser. The advertiser. Because the advertiser is the reason that they're making money.
Right.
But there would be no viewers, and no advertisers wouldn't be paying any money if it wasn't creators. So they're very, very friendly to the creators. I mean, creators are really important, and there's a creator academy, teach you how to be a better YouTuber. It's a whole different mindset than Facebook. Facebook couldn't give a rip about the creator, based on my understanding. So it's they don't probably even think of you as a creator. They don't put you in a different category. You're a user, and they want you to advertise. So you're the same person. That's my take on Facebook. So and YouTube's going to be here to stay. I mean, do you know that YouTube, and this is from Daryl Eves and also from the beginning of his book, do you know that YouTube started out as a dating channel?
I did not.
Yeah. They because this is in the 2005, and I think it was 2005, plus or minus a year or two. And they all worked at PayPal, and PayPal was the hottest thing going in Silicon Valley. And there were three of them that, you know, worked at PayPal and wanted to come up with something to do on the side. And they came up with this idea because eHarmony was a big hot thing, and you know, dating site. And they came up with this site, and they literally went on Craigslist and advertised $20, which was more money in 2005 than it is today. I mean, inflation and everything. $20 for girls to put videos up on their site. They got 0 takers. They couldn't get any traction. And the very first video, apparently you can still see it. The very first video put on the site was one of the partners at the zoo standing in front of the elephants making some double entendres about elephant anatomy, trying to be a dating site or something. I haven't seen it. I just heard about it. It's only like 30 seconds long. And apparently by production values and 2021 values, it's absolutely horrible, but it's history. It's instructive. I do want to find it and watch it. And they quickly realized after a few months that there were people putting videos up, but they weren't dating videos. They were videos of them playing with their cats or whatever it is. And they had an analysis, and they said, wait a minute, are we going to try to continue to be a dating site? Or do we actually shift to what is actually generating us some activity here? We're getting traction. And they made that shift. And Daryl points out that he said, that's crucial. And that's really a microcosm of what you have to do as a YouTuber. You have to analyze your data. You have all the data, the click-through rate, the view, when the people are dropping off, how long they're viewing, all of that. You got all the data, and you have to learn how to analyze it and revamp and correct and
calibrate.
Sorry?
Calibrate.
Yeah, recalibrate. Exactly. And that's how you succeed. And the guy who he had on the training on last Friday is Mr. Beast. His name is Jimmy, coincidentally, another great person like you.
I love him.
Jimmy, I remember his last name. Mr. Beast. Your kids know. Did we talk about this before, right?
Oh,
your kids know who Mr. Beast
Mark
is.
Talk about Mr. Beast.
Yeah. Mr. Beast is right now third biggest YouTuber. PewDiePie is still the biggest, I believe. But Mr. Beast his goal is to be the biggest YouTuber on the planet. And he's growing faster than PewDiePie. He will overtake him at some point. And what he does, he gives away stuff. And gives away money, fills a swimming pool filled with milk and cereal and has his friends go into it. And the last person in the pool gets $10,000, stuff like that. We're not talking 20 minutes. We're talking, days. Milk's smelling rancid,
Oh my gosh.
He does crazy things but he wrote the foreword to the book. He does crazy things like he said, he starts off by saying that everybody should have a YouTube channel. Everybody. And he said that and brands should no longer be spending money on television. What they should do is give that same money to a YouTuber, and don't give them a script. Just tell them to do what they do and build. And he gives an example. He came up with this app called Finger on the App. I don't know it, but and he gave away some money who had their finger on the app for the longest period of time. The person who stayed with their finger on the app. So you could play anywhere. You didn't even have to be in front of the camera. And he didn't even advertise it on his YouTube channel, which is superpower. He only advertised it on Instagram, I think Facebook and Snapchat, he said, which was like doing it with his arm tied behind his back because he's a YouTuber. And he got, I can't remember the number, but he got like millions of downloads. And he said, coincidentally, at the same time, there was another app called Quibi. I've heard of Quibi, Quibi. I don't know what they do, but I've heard the name of that app. And he said they were launching their app, and they had, what did he say? I think he said a $9 billion ad spend. It's hard for me to believe that that it was B with a billion, but a lot of money ad spend at the same period of time. And they only got 300,000 downloads of their app. And he said, mine was basically free, and I got millions of downloads. And he said, that's the influence. And if you don't recognize the influence of that, you're missing the boat. And so he said, for example, if Coca-Cola came to me, I would take 1 million cans and build a pyramid and then make a video and do that. Or I would have a friend's house and take 1 million cans and put them into stuff my friend's house with 1 million cans. And he said, those are a couple ideas that if they're done right, you'd get lots of traffic.
It'd blow up.
That kind of stuff. I mean, that does sound like a YouTube video, doesn't it? crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, and it'd be some of the best money Coca-Cola's ever spent, probably.
Absolutely. And then he says in the forward, he said, okay, Coca-Cola, those two are free. But if you want any more, you're going to have to pay me, because tongue in cheek, of course, but not really tongue in cheek. I'm sure he's serious. So, yeah, I mean, and then you'll get on comment sections and people will decry YouTube and poo-poo it and say, it's just kids playing. Missing the boat, man. The world is changing. The world is changing. YouTube's not going anywhere. And what it does is you're allowed to be a script writer. You can be the screenwriter. You can be the cinematographer. You can be the producer, the director. You're all of it. You control it. And you can do it with a little phone. You don't need a big budget. And so there's no middle people. And he said it's only going to get more. And he said, build your channel now because it's going to be more competitive and more difficult in another 5 or 10 years. I mean, now compared to people that were at it 10 years ago, it's much more competitive than it was 10 years ago. And he said, that's only going to continue. So now get into it now. So I'm so excited about YouTube. I mean, I'm definitely in the not the typical demographic. I'm not a 20 something, but I mean, I know you think I am probably, but you that are watching, I look like it, but I'm really not. So.
Well, every single kid that I've talked to for 10 years is going to be a YouTuber when they grow up. So I'm sure that it is going to get even more competitive. It's not going anywhere.
No, it's not going anywhere.
And I mean, it's the equivalent of opening a retail store or say a clothing store, but all of a sudden you can make the clothes and you can be the person that stocks the clothes and checks people out and handles orders. It's just 100% vertical supply chain. Content. I mean, that's how all these guys are crushing it. When you see these little kids that are making $1 gazillion off of it, it's all in one. So the model in and of itself it's amazing, really.
Well, the ground is shifting underneath our feet, Jimmy, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but the world is changing, and I think the pandemic has accelerated some of that shift. Nobody, I don't think anyone could have accurately predicted some of the effects of a global pandemic. And one of the effects, I read an article in the New York Times about this. Now, I used to ship containers. You know what a container is? A 20-foot long or a 40-foot long container. You sometimes see them on trucks. We used to ship soybeans, food-grade soybeans, to Japan and Vietnam. I was actually the first person to ship food-grade soybeans to Vietnam. I opened that market up. Little victory for me. Anyway, they took them 6 months to pay me, though. That was a tragedy. But I did finally get paid. Anyway, and so we used to take these containers and bring them to the farm and then load 30-kilogram bags on there and stack them in there. We got up to the point where we didn't even have to handle them. We would put them on a slip sheet on a pallet, and then the slip sheet would stay there. So it got to the point where we didn't even have to manually stack them. But we would stack those little 20-foot containers completely full to the gills, and then truck it to Minneapolis, and then it would get on a train, and it would go to the coast, and it would get on a boat, and then it would go to the Asian country. And the containers shipping to Asia was a lot cheaper than shipping from Asia. The money was being made with the imports, electronics, or whatever it is that comes from China or Indonesia or whatever country you manufacture. But they had to get the containers back there, so they would, make some money, because they still had to haul the containers there. You can't automatically, the containers got to get back so you can fill them up and bring them back and make the big money.
Right.
So that's why the rates were a lot cheaper. I mean, if we were going the other way, it would have been 3 times expensive. I think the biggest cost was the rail, the freight, the trucking and the rail. I think it used to cost me about $1,500 a container, but the actual ocean going part was probably only about $600, roughly. It's been 20 years. And the last container I shipped was probably 13 years ago. Anyway, So container, anything you buy probably in Walmart, made in China, wherever, it came in a container, right? 40 footers. If it's not heavy stuff, it's probably 40 footers, because you're weighted out. I mean, we would max out the weight with a 20 footer, but you have something that's like, I don't know, some like electronics is probably not that heavy. You probably do it in 40 footers. Well, because of the pandemic, this article is talking about how the people are bored. What do people have been doing for the last year? They've been bored and they've been at home. And what have they been doing? They've been buying stuff online. You probably know Amazon has gone crazy. Amazon is making so much money and has, what was the worth? How many was it? The market worth? I can't remember what the number was, but they broke some kind of a record. And Bezos was worth like 100 billion. I don't remember the numbers. I don't remember how many zeros, but records and records upon records being broken. And because Americans are buying so much stuff, and not just Americans, other, you would have thought that. I mean, there are people who are being evicted. They don't have enough money because they're in the service industry or they're musicians or selling their instruments. I just got a text today from a guy I know who says, "Hey, would you be interested in buying a Paul Reed Smith 24? I'm like, I've not really been in the market for a Paul Reed Smith. I don't have one of those, but I might be interested. And you said a lot of musicians have been selling gear because there are a lot of people struggling. If you've worked in food service, if you're a roadie for a band, I mean, you've been, that's your thing. You're there.
Sure.
But some people are killing it and they have money and they're buying. So it's such an imbalanced thing. But anyway, so what this article was so interesting to me because I used to be in that business. I used to ship containers over, and I was always worried that the ship would capsize and my container would go on the bottom of the ocean. There was insurance, but my customer would have been mad. Where's my container? I got to make tofu and I got to have the beans and they're not here. Insurance doesn't cover that part of it, So I always had this unnatural fear that something was going to happen. So it never did. They're very safe. But it was really interesting to hear about what's happened. There's so much demand for these containers that they don't even bother to ship them to the middle of the country and load them up with beans. They go back empty. Get back as fast as possible. Man, if I was in that business today, I'd be struggling. I couldn't get my product back over to Asia, my soybeans, because there's a shortage of containers. And one guy who was importing, he said he normally spends about $2,500 for a container, and he needed to get something here. I don't remember what it was, but he paid $65,000 for one container. Market demand. And also, these ships are full with these full containers in Long Beach. There's a big port is Long Beach, California. And because of pandemic and people being ill, there's nobody to unload them. So they're sitting there for like a week waiting for they to unload. I mean, everything is jammed up and it's just a mess for containers. There's a shortage. Maybe that's what happened with toilet paper. I don't know. But who would have thought that a pandemic would have that kind of an effect?
Sure.
It's not, you never would have, I don't think anyone could have forecasted that. That disrupted, so many things would have been disrupted. And shipping like that continued. There'd be so much demand for products imported that they're not even allowing them to be shipped back full. They're just going back empty.
Yeah.
Going back on.
And the home too. I mean, amenities and like making your home more comfortable.
Yeah.
Everybody spent so much time at home due to the pandemic that all of a sudden it's kind of like this reset happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of everybody saying, well, what's the most important thing here? Oh, it's my home.
Yeah. And people are also, a lot of people, home, well, because the interest rates are so low, one reason, but a lot of people wanted to buy and get out of the city or get out of where they were or get a bigger property, whatever it was. The housing has gone crazy. And in certain, you said even in Madison, they're only on the market for a couple hours or whatever. It's crazy. Sleeping Mayberry, RFD in Madison. Nashville, forget it. I mean, you just can't. I mean, I've been looking, but I've looked for rental properties, and the realtor said, well, you got 24 hours most likely, and you better offer them at least what they're asking. So, probably above what they're asking. It's hard to keep track on where the market is. It's going so fast.
Sure.
And I even heard today, which shocked me, when there's the ag market is different than real estate, but soybeans went up in my old market, my old business. Soybeans went up almost 50%, and that's all gravy, because that's all, if your cost of production doesn't go up. And so I got a text today from somebody wanting to buy some hunting land from us, and he made a comment that farmland is $5-6 grand an acre, which for South Dakota is like double what it was like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
So who could have guessed those sort of? Now that's unrelated. Ag is different. It's unrelated. Ag, often some of the best times in ag are when the economy is doing poorly. I mean, I don't know. They're just like in 2008 when there was a crash. I mean, ag prices went through the roof. Commodity prices. Remember, people were breaking into buildings and stealing the copper out of the walls. All the commodities just went through the roof. Meanwhile, the rest of the economy is crashing. So, I mean, it's on its own cycle. But that's also booming right now. So just crazy times. And then you've got the NFTs. Did we talk about that last week? I don't want to repeat the subject.
No.
Non-fungible tokens,
No.
NFTs. And I didn't know what they were really, but it has to do with the Bitcoin and that sort of thing. And where it's like, for example, you create a piece of artwork. Grimes, she's an artist. She's married to who she's married to? She's married to a celebrity in another field. I gotta look that up. Who's Grimes married to? Do you know who Grimes is married to?
No, Leanne Grimes.
No, no. The Canadian artist Grimes.
Oh,
Grimes, musician, is married to Elon Musk. Here's a picture with Elon Musk, or dating Elon Musk. What is it? Yeah, partner. Yeah, she's still with him. Yeah, she's with Elon Musk. Anyway, she created some artwork, some digital artwork, and sold it using NFTs and blockchain. Blockchain is where every time it changes hands, it's tracked, so it's very secure. So nobody can falsify it, and so every time it gets sold, I think the original maker of it still gets some money. And so, although the blockchain is not the item, but it represents the item. See what I mean? So you have a blockchain entry, which is like a ledger that is very, very secure. And if you ever want to sell that, you have to go through the blockchain, and then it's kind of tied with the Bitcoin, but not completely. I mean, it's not the same thing, but they are often used together. Well, Grimes created, I believe it was 10 digital artworks, and she sold them for how many millions? Let me see. It was millions, not 5.8 million. Grimes made $5.8 million in 20 minutes selling NFT art. This was March 1st article. Crypto-based artwork. I mean, she's got one of the smartest entrepreneurs in the world right now kind of helping her out. Elon probably gave her some advice. And 5.8 million. And so there's a lot of artists, and then creating their own Bitcoin currency. I mean, this is a thing, and this is going to get bigger. I mean, I want to know, I want to create a Tim Wolf currency. I mean, I want to do this. I want to cash in,
Well, I've thought about that, and sometimes I think about it, and it's like, I don't want to mess with that stuff because it's not real. And then I'm like, money's not really real either.
Exactly. Money's not real. Money's a made up thing.
Yeah.
That piece of paper, that ain't worth $100 or whatever it is.
Right.
It's a social construct.
Exactly. So I feel like at some point there's a line and the government will kind of check everybody on it. Once it gets to the point where it's really, really competing with the dollar, I don't know how, but the government will do something to check it just as hard as they possibly can and devalue it or put an end to it one way or another. They're not going to let it get rid of the dollar, I don't think.
Yeah. Yes, sir. But I would say that NFTs and blockchain could be done with dollars as well. Excuse me. I don't think you have to necessarily do it with, with Bitcoins or, a cryptocurrency. Maybe you do. Maybe I don't understand it well enough. I mean, I don't understand it as well as I want to, but I mean, I think those are different technologies that just happen to be used together.
Right.
You could do what you could use dollars to buy and sell NFTs. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin cryptocurrencies. I mean, NFTs are a thing, but they happen to be the type of people who are using them and are hip to that also tend to be people who are hip to cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Is my understanding. If I'm wrong and somebody tells me, oh, Carrie Conkles, hey, thank you, Carrie. I'm going to put this on the thing. Carrie says the Rolling Stones have their own coin now.
Wow.
See, there you go. There you go. Perfect example. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, I mean, why not, man? I mean, the Rolling Stones are doing it. It's becoming more and more of a thing. I like what is that? That is Zeus, maybe? Who is that? That icon? That's a Greek mythology. Do you know? Can you see it, Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't know who it is though.
Icon. I think it's one of the Greek gods. Maybe you can tell us. Is it Zeus? I'm going to guess Zeus. I don't know. Thank you, Carrie, for commenting. So yeah, I don't know why it's connected to music. I mean, why specifically music? But there are other artists that are creating their own coin, their own.
Well, opportunists, man.
Opportunists. I mean, if anybody should do it, the Rolling Stones. I mean, they've got a built-in fan base. Taylor Swift could do it. I mean, she's her Swifties. I mean, people that are
the rappers laid the groundwork for a lot of that sort of entrepreneurial spirit in the music business.
Okay. Poseidon? Is that Poseidon? Okay. Huh. I don't know much about that. I will Google that after we get off. Thank you. Always love to learn about what other people are into, and you can always learn stuff. It's just fun.
Yeah.
The world is so big, and there's so much to learn.
So fast.
Sorry, say it again.
It's changing so fast, man.
Yes. And so some of these things, like what we're talking about, the ground is changing. I mean, it's accelerating. I don't think we're even probably touching on all the things that are changing, but I mean, the world is not going to be the same. Sorry, go ahead.
Look at what just a year did.
Yeah.
So, and I think about this a lot. Like now, we had all these changes in a year, but we were very blessed because we have the information highway, so we can relate all this data to each other immediately. Imagine like the plague or whatever when people didn't know.
Right. Absolutely.
It's like, what in the world is this?
Carrie says it's all Greek to me. Oh, I love that. I had a friend who was born in Greece and spoke fluent Greek, of course, and he loved the American joke. It's all Greek to me. He would use that all the time because Greek to him was his first language. It's interesting. Anyway, I interrupted you, buddy. Go ahead.
No, that's it, man. That's kind of all I had. It was just we're fortunate that with all the changes now, we're in the information age. We can share information, and that's
to me, there's
we take for granted that. Imagine, hundreds of years ago.
Right. There's a series, and Netflix is. I've seen two of them now. and I hope they continue this because I'm so nerdy. I love history. I love art. And the first one I watched, and they've got these series now. The second one, the first one that I watched was The Samurai Age. Fascinating. Fascinating. And I watched the whole series. And I don't know if there's going to be a season 2 or not, but it was, I lived in Japan. I used to speak Japanese fluently. So I'm especially interested in the Japanese culture. I mean, there's such rich history there. Rich history. So well done. And now they're doing one on the era of the pirates. And I started watching. I watched like 3 or 4 episodes. Fascinating how they got started, and started around 1715. And this will come back around to what you were talking about. And Spain had this war against England. And in 1715, they got a ceasefire. And Spain was kind of broke, but they had all the territories in Americas, South and North America, and they were mining gold, and they were coming back with a bunch of gold and silver that was on their ships in 1715. And there was a storm that came because they couldn't forecast storms. Now this is where I'm going to bring it back. Now we can forecast storms, and they lost all of that. All those ships crashed, and they weren't that far off of the American coast, and basically bankrupt because they were counting on that money because they just fought this big long war with the UK, and it really changed. I mean, that was really the end, according to the documentary. That was really the end because Spain had been a huge superpower, and that was kind of the end of their time as a superpower.
Wow!
And if they had been able to forecast that storm, that probably wouldn't have happened. So a lot of people, things would happen, and the bubonic plague, and they didn't even understand how that was. The dead bodies were still around, and not washing your hands, and all that kind of stuff. They didn't understand that. It was all mystical to them.
Sure.
Now we have to understand. Of course, there's a lot of things we don't understand, but we're so much further ahead than they were back, say, in 1715. Although storms still do come and catch us, earthquakes happen and we don't forecast them. Tsunamis happen and things, so we're not completely able to control that. But just interesting, really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of great characters, and they know the names of the people, they know their background, and like Blackbeard. Remember, you know the name Blackbeard. I don't know much about him, but it talks about how he got started, and some of these other folks, and how they were literally why they became pirates was when England didn't really want to spend any money on fighting because they were also broke and or didn't have the money to spend on this war. So what they did instead was they authorized these. They called them privateers. And the King of England gave them this writ, which gave them the right under the English crown, the British crown, to go out and attack their enemy. And their pay was the gold and silver and that they could plunder. Their pay was the plunder. So they basically had a war. They had a navy without paying for it.
Really?
And all they had to do was write, stamp. You have this official mark from the throne that you could do that. Well, then they had to cease fire, and all these privateers no longer had anything to plunder, and they no longer had the authorization from the crown. So the equation is privateer minus the authorization from the crown equals pirate. That's what happened. All these guys had these vessels. They knew how to do it. They could, and so what are we going to do? We're out of work. We're unemployed. What are we going to do? And so this whole series talks about how they evolved, and they literally had a very highly evolved system of governing. They were headquartered in Nassau, Bahamas, and they actually, they had rules and, that they all lived by. And they didn't have a formal constitution, but it was like they all had certain ways that they did things. And whereas if you were the captain of the ship, anything you said goes. And they said they used to whip their people for minor transgressions. Well, the pirates said, we ain't doing that. It's completely democratic, and everybody gets to vote, from the lowest person, the pot washer, the plate washer, all the way up to the captain. And if you don't like your captain, you can vote him out. And they said this is 1715. They said this form of government was really the precursor to the American form of government. They kind of modeled it after the pirates. Can you imagine that? I mean, because we're taught that pirates were bad, bad, bad. They really weren't. They were just unemployed people. They found a way to go forward, and they had honor and a way of doing things. And they had African Americans. Well, they weren't African Americans, but people of African descent in them, and they're all equal. They had equality. There's still slave trade going on by that time. Slave trade didn't end until the 1800s. So fascinating stuff. I can't wait to.
Curve.
What's that, sir?
They were ahead of the curve.
Ahead of the curve. And so much history. And we weren't taught a lot of that, because, our history books were a certain thing that they wanted us to understand. And sure. Pirates were bad pirate.
End of story.
Oh, man. So, yeah, what a great time to be alive, Jimmy. It's just so exciting. I wish I could had 48. I wish I didn't have to sleep. I could take it all in.
Yeah.
Well, we got 46 minutes. I did most of the talking. What do you got? What do you want to say? You got anything to say? Oh, Emma.
She was like all scooched up behind me. That's why I had to move. Come in behind me.
Oh, what a lover of a dog Emma is. Yeah.
Yeah. She's too sweet, man.
She is. Yeah.
Good stuff.
I've never seen a dog what she does. She gets beside you and puts her cheek against your cheek and snuggles. Yeah. I've never seen a dog do that.
Right.
She loves doing that.
It's hard not to be in a good mood around her.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, what you thought you were getting when you get this pup.
You're supposed to be a Rottweiler.
You thought you're getting this attack dog, and instead you get the most loving.
Yeah, the sweetest dog in history.
That's hilarious. All right, shall we wrap her up?
Let's wrap her up, man. Till next time.
Yeah, till next time.
Yeah.
We may have to move. The time, so we'll let you know. But we will still continue these every week, but it may not be on Tuesday nights at this time. But we will post it in our Facebook group and Instagram group when that'll be. So,
rock and roll.
All right, Jimmy D and the Wolf.
Peace.
See you next time.